St. Mary's Hospital, a great place for medicine in a rich town, was about to face a surprise when Angela Parker, a skilled black nurse, joined them. She didn't know about the deep-seated bad feelings she would meet as tensions grew and problems got worse. A quiet patient named Thomas Edwards watched from his hospital bed. But Mr. Edwards wasn't just any patient, and his being there was about to change everything. What secret power did this mystery patient hold, and how could one nurse's fight cause big change in the hospital? Let's find out. Before we get into this story, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you like this tale with surprises and fair moments, don't forget to subscribe. The clean halls of St. Mary's Hospital shined under the bright lights as Angela Parker took her first steps inside. The air was heavy with the smell of cleaner and a quiet feeling of unease that made her stomach turn. Even with her nerves, Angela stood tall and held her head up, set on making a good first impression. As she went to the nurse's station, Angela noticed how suddenly quiet it got. Talk died down to whispers, and eyes quickly looked away from her, as if afraid to make eye contact. She swallowed hard, pushing down the old feeling of being alone that tried to take over. "Excuse me," Angela said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I'm Angela Parker, the new nurse. Could you tell me where the head nurse's office is? A blonde?" Nurse looked up, her blue eyes getting a little wider before a practiced smile appeared on her face. "Of course," she replied, her tone polite but cold. "Down the hall, third door on the right." Angela nodded her thanks and walked down the hallway, very aware of the eyes watching her. The sound of her sensible shoes echoed in the quiet, each step feeling like a loud noise in the strangely silent place. As she got near the office, a tall, important-looking man in a white coat came out of a nearby room. His graying hair and bossy way marked him as a senior doctor. Angela's heart beat faster with hope. Maybe this would be her chance to make a good connection. "Good morning, doctor," she said, giving a warm smile. "I'm Angela Parker, the new nurse starting today." "It's a pleasure to meet you." The doctor's cold gray eyes looked her over, his face showing no feeling. "Dr. William Greaves," he replied sharply. "I trust you've been properly taught our rules." Before Angela could answer, Dr. Greaves went on. "We keep very high standards here at St. Mary's. I hope you're ready to meet them." Without waiting for an answer, he walked past her, leaving Angela standing alone in the hallway, her hand slowly falling to her side. The interaction left her feeling down, but Angela refused to let it spoil her mood. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and knocked on the head nurse's door as she waited for a reply. Angela's mind went back to her nursing school days, her mother's words in her ears. "Baby girl," her mother had said, her voice full of both pride and worry. "You're going to have to fight twice as hard as everyone else. But don't you ever let them see you sweat. You come from a long line of strong women, and you've got that same strength in you." Angela remembered the late night studying, the extra hours in the lab, and the constant feeling of having to prove herself. She recalled the small dismissals from some teachers, the raised eyebrows when she did well on a test, and the whispered comments from classmates questioning if she truly belonged. But through it all, Angela had kept going. She finished at the top of her class, her strong will and skill silencing even her worst critics. Now, standing in the halls of St. Mary's, Angela found strength from those memories. She had gotten over hard things before, and she would do it again. The door opened, showing a middle-aged woman with a serious face. "Miss Parker, I guess," she said, her tone short. "Come in. We have a lot to cover, and I expect you to keep up." As Angela followed the head nurse into the office, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into more than just a new job. The air in the hospital seemed full of a quiet unease, a silent storm building under the surface of polite smiles and clean order. Little did Angela know that her being there would soon cause change in the halls of St. Mary's, challenging old bad feelings and showing the bad ways that hid behind its fancy look. The rest of Angela's first day passed in a rush of introductions and a lot of papers. As she went through the hospital, she couldn't help but notice the small ways she was left out. Talks would get quiet as she came near, only to start again in whispers once she passed. Her tries at friendly talk with other nurses were met with polite but distant answers, making her feel like an outsider in what should have been a team effort. By the time her shift ended, Angela was tired in her mind and body. As she gathered her things from her locker, she heard two nurses talking in quiet tones around the corner. "Did you see the new hire?" one whispered. "Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking," the other replied. "This isn't exactly the neighborhood for, you know, ... Angela's hand froze on her locker door, her heart sinking. She had hoped that the first coldness was just new job nerves, but now the truth of her situation was becoming very clear. This wasn't just a new job, it was going to be a daily fight against bad feelings and unfair thoughts. As she left the hospital, the weight of the day pushed down on her shoulders. Angela went to the bus stop, her mind full of feelings. The excitement she had felt that morning had been replaced by a growing feeling of doubt and being alone. Sitting on the hard plastic bench, Angela pulled out her phone and called a familiar number. After 2 rings, a warm, comforting voice answered. "Hey, baby girl, how was your first day?" At the sound of her mother's voice, Angela felt tears come to her eyes. She took a shaky breath, set on not crying in public. "It was challenging, Mama," she said, her voice barely a whisper. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line before her mother spoke again, her voice full of understanding and strength. "Angela Marie Parker, you listen to me. You've worked too hard to let anyone make you feel less than. Remember who you are and where you come from. You're not just there for yourself. You're there for every little black girl who dreams of being in those halls one day." Angela closed her eyes, letting her mother's words wash over her. "I know, Mama. It's just, ... I didn't expect it to be this hard. Nothing worth doing is ever." "Easy, baby," her mother replied. "Okay, you've got the strength of generations behind you. Hold your head high. Do your job better than anyone else, and don't you dare let them see you falter. You hear me?" "Yes, Mama," Angela said, feeling a new sense of strong will. "I hear you." As she ended the call, Angela noticed a sleek, black Mercedes slowed down as it passed the bus stop. Through the dark windows, she caught a glimpse of Dr. Greaves, his eyes fixed on her for a moment before the car sped away. Angela straightened her shoulders, her mother's words echoing in her mind. She may be facing a hard fight, but she was far from alone. With the strength of her family behind her and her own will to prove herself, Angela knew she could handle whatever St. Mary's threw her way. As the bus came, Angela stood ready to face another day. Little did she know that her being at St. Mary's was about to start a chain of events that would challenge the very base of the hospital's ways, showing old bad feelings and forcing a long-needed change. The next weeks at St. Mary's Hospital were like a slow-burning fuse, each day adding more tension to Angela Parker's already tough work life. The first coldness she had felt on her first day had grown into a more sneaky kind of being left out, one that was harder to point out but impossible to ignore. As Angela did her morning rounds, she couldn't help but notice how differently she was treated compared to her white coworkers. Dr. William Greaves, in particular, seemed to take a strange joy in finding fault with her work, no matter how carefully she did her duties. "Nurse Parker." Dr. Greaves called out one morning, his voice carrying across the busy nurses' station. "I hope you know our rules by now. We can't afford any mistakes." The stress he put on the word mistakes sent a shiver down Angela's spine. She met his gaze steadily, refusing to be scared. "Of course, Dr. Greaves. I promise you I'm fully skilled in all hospital steps, double quotes. Dr. Greaves raised an eyebrow, a small, knowing smile on his face. We'll see about that, won't we? Let's hope you learned everything you need to hear. The barely hidden put-down in his tone was not lost on Angela, nor on the other nurses who pretended to be busy with their tasks while clearly listening. As Dr. Greaves walked away, Angela could feel the weight of unsaid judgments pressing down on her. Throughout the day, Angela found herself given the hardest and least wanted tasks, while her white coworkers were given fairly easy cases. Angela was repeatedly sent to deal with the most difficult patients and the most complex actions. "Angela, would you mind taking Mr. Johnson in room 35?" a fellow nurse asked, her voice sickly sweet. "He's been a bit challenging today." Angela nodded, knowing very well that challenging was an understatement. Mr. Johnson was known for his hateful outbursts and had already made 2 nurses cry that week. Yet Angela approached the task with strong, good behavior, set on proving her worth. As she entered Mr. Johnson's room, ready for the bad words, Angela couldn't help but wonder if this task was just another way to test her strength, or worse, to set her up for failure. "What are you doing here?" Mr. Johnson spat as soon as he saw her. "I told them I don't want no colored nurse touching me." Angela took a deep breath, preparing herself against the flood of hateful words. "Mr. Johnson, I'm here to check your signs and change your bandage. I promise you I'm more than able to provide your care." As she worked, putting up with a constant stream of bad words and insults, Angela kept her calm. She finished her tasks with exactness and care, refusing to let Mr. Johnson's unfairness affect the quality of her work. When she finally came out of the room, Angela found Dr. Greaves waiting in the hallway, a look of fake concern on his face. "Everything all right in there, Nurse Parker?" We heard quite a commotion. Angela met his gaze evenly. "Mr. Johnson's signs are steady, and his bandage has been changed. Is there anything else you need from me, Dr. Greaves?" For a moment, surprise flickered across the doctor's face, quickly replaced by his usual cold look. "Well, let's hope you can keep that level of calm with all your patients. We wouldn't want any complaints now, would we?" As Dr. Greaves walked away, Angela couldn't shake the feeling that she had just passed some kind of test, one that she should never have been made to take in the first place. The rest of Angela's shift passed in a blur of endless tasks and small put-downs. She found herself constantly having to check her work twice, not because she doubted her skills, but because she knew that even the smallest mistake would be made bigger and used against her. As the day went on, Angela couldn't help but notice how her white coworkers seemed to get through their shifts easily, chatting and laughing while she struggled under the weight of her too heavy workload. The unfairness was clear, but every time she thought about speaking up, the memory of her mother's words held her back. "Don't you dare let them see you falter." By the time her shift ended, Angela was tired physically and emotionally. As she gathered her things from her locker, she heard 2 nurses whispering nearby. "Can you believe they're making such a big deal about diversity hires?" One said, her voice full of scorn. "It's not like they can keep up with the rest of us anyway." Angela's hand froze on her locker door, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted nothing more than to face them, to defend herself and her skills. But she knew that any such face-off would only make their bad feelings stronger. Instead, she closed her locker quietly and made her way out of the hospital. Her head held high despite the weight of the day pushing down on her shoulders, as Angela waited at the bus stop. The same sleek black Mercedes she had seen before pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, showing Dr. Greaves behind the wheel. "Nurse Parker," he called out, his voice full of fake concern. "Waiting for the bus again. Such a shame. Looks like that's all you can afford on a nurse's salary, isn't it?" Before Angela could answer, Dr. Greaves sped away, leaving her standing there humiliated and angry. The easy cruelty of his words cut deep, reminding her once again of the hard fight she faced every day at St. Mary's. As she got on the bus, Angela's mind was a rush of feelings. The excitement and hope she had felt when she first started at St. Mary's seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by a grim determination to survive in this unfriendly place. But even as she dealt with the day's events, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that something had to give. The question was, would she be the one to break under the constant pressure, or would her strong will finally force a change in the bad ways of St. Mary's? Little did Angela know that an unexpected helper was about to enter her life, one who would help tip the scales in her favor and show the deep-seated bad feelings that had long been festering within the walls of St. Mary's Hospital. As the bus rumbled through the darkening streets, Angela closed her eyes, drawing strength from the memory of her mother's words and the legacy of staying strong that ran through her family. Tomorrow would be another fight, but she was determined to face it head-on, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The next morning, Angela arrived at St. Mary's with new determination. She had spent the night thinking about her experiences and reminding herself why she became a nurse in the first place, to help people no matter their background or her own challenges. As she made her way to the nurses' station, Angela noticed a lot of activity. Nurses were quickly getting a room ready, and there was a feeling of eagerness that she hadn't felt before. "What's going on?" Angela asked one of her coworkers, curious about the stir. The nurse, for a moment forgetting her usual coldness towards Angela, replied excitedly, "We've got a VIP patient coming in. Some big shot who got into a skiing accident. Both arms broken from what I heard." Before Angela could ask more, Dr. Greaves appeared, his face set in a stern look. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice clipped, "I need you to handle the new patient in room 412, Mr. Thomas Edwards. He's had a severe skiing accident and both his arms are broken. I expect you to provide him with the utmost care and attention." Angela nodded, recognizing the task for what it was, another test. "Of course, Dr. Greaves, I'll see to it right away." As she made her way to room 412, Angela couldn't shake the feeling that this task was different somehow. The air of importance around this patient made her wonder if there was more to this situation. Then met the eye. Entering the room, Angela saw a middle-aged man lying in bed, both arms in casts. Despite his injuries, there was a quiet air of power about him that Angela immediately noticed. "Good morning, Mr. Edwards," she said, going to the bed with a warm smile. "I'm Nurse Angela Parker, and I'll be taking care of you during your stay." With us, Mr. Edwards looked up at her, his eyes sharp and judging. "Good morning, Nurse Parker," he replied, his voice surprisingly strong given his condition. "I appreciate your help. I must say, I didn't expect to end up here after my skiing accident." As Angela began to check his vital signs and assess his condition, she couldn't help but notice how Mr. Edwards watched her every move with keen interest. Unlike some of the other patients she had dealt with, there was no hint of bad feelings or dislike in his gaze, only a thoughtful interest. "You seem very skilled, Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards commented as she adjusted his fore. "How long have you been working at St. Mary's?" Angela paused, surprised by the real interest in his tone. "I've been here for a few weeks now, sir," she replied carefully. "It's been quite an experience so far." Mr. Edwards raised an eyebrow at her careful answer. "I see," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "And how have you found the hospital? Living up to its prestigious reputation, I hope." Angela hesitated, unsure how to answer. She was saved from responding by the arrival of Dr. Greaves, who burst into the room with an overly cheerful manner that Angela had never seen before. "Mr. Edwards." Dr. Greaves exclaimed, his voice full of fake warmth. "I trust Nurse Parker has been taking good care of you. We only assign our best staff to our most distinguished patients. Angela fought to keep her face neutral, knowing very well that Dr. Greaves had never shown such faith in her skills before. Mr. Edwards, however, seemed to notice the inconsistency. "Indeed, Dr. Greaves," he replied, his eyes flicking between the doctor and Angela. "Nurse Parker has been great. I was just asking her about her experiences here at St. Mary's." Double quotes. Dr. Greaves's smile faltered for a moment before he quickly recovered. "Well, I'm sure she'll tell you it's been nothing short of excellent. We pride ourselves on our inclusive and supportive environment here at St. Mary's." Angela felt a surge of anger at Dr. Greaves's clear fake behavior, but she kept her professional manner. Mr. Edwards, however, seemed to sense the quiet tension. "Is that so?" he mused, his eyes never leaving Angela's face. "Well, I look forward to experiencing this supportive environment firsthand during my stay." As Dr. Greaves began a detailed explanation of Mr. Edwards's treatment plan, Angela couldn't shake the feeling that she had just witnessed something important. The way Mr. Edwards had looked at her, the pointed nature of his questions, it was as if he was seeing beyond the surface of St. Mary's polished look. Over the next few days, Angela found herself spending more time in Mr. Edwards's room than with any other patient. Despite his injuries, he was alert and engaging, often asking her questions about her work and her background. Unlike many of the other patients and staff, Mr. Edwards seemed truly interested in her answers, never showing a hint of the bad feelings she had come to expect. One afternoon, as Angela was changing Mr. Edwards's bandages, she overheard a conversation outside the room that made her blood run cold. "I don't care what Dr. Greaves says," a nurse's voice hissed. "I don't trust that Parker woman with our VIP patient, and knows what she might do." "I know," another voice agreed, "but we can't say anything. They'll just accuse us of being racist." Angela's hands trembled slightly as she finished her task, the weight of the constant suspicion and mistrust pushing down on her. Mr. Edwards, always watching, noticed her distress. "Is everything all right, Nurse Parker?" he asked, his voice gentle but curious. Angela forced a smile. "Of course, Mr. Edwards, just concentrating on getting these bandages just right." Mr. Edwards was silent for a moment, his eyes studying her face. "You know," he said finally, "I've always believed that a person's true character is revealed not in how they treat their bosses, but in how they treat those they see as below them." Angela looked up, surprised by the pointed nature of his comment. Mr. Edwards held her gaze, a knowing look in his eyes. "I've seen a lot in my time, Nurse Parker, and I can tell you the view from this bed has been eye-opening." Before Angela could respond, Dr. Greaves entered the room, cutting their conversation short. As she left the room, Angela couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Edwards was more than just a VIP patient. His words and actions hinted at a deeper understanding of the power struggles at St. Mary's, and for the first time since she started working there, Angela felt a glimmer of hope. Little did she know that Mr. Edwards's presence was about to start a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of St. Mary's Hospital, showing the deep-seated bad feelings that had long been hiding beneath its clean surface. As the days went on, Angela found herself more and more alone at St. Mary's. The first coldness from her coworkers had turned into open unfriendliness, with whispered comments and pointed glares following her wherever she went. Dr. Greaves, feeling brave because of the lack of punishment for his behavior, became more open in his attempts to hurt her. One morning, as Angela was looking at patient charts at the nurse's station, Dr. Greaves came to her with a stack of files. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice full of fake concern, "I need you to handle these cases today. They're particularly challenging. I trust you're up to the task." Angela looked at the pile, immediately seeing it was almost double the workload of her coworkers. She met Dr. Greaves's gaze steadily, refusing to show any sign of being scared. "Of course, Dr. Greaves. I'll see to it right away." As Dr. Greaves walked away, a smirk on his face, Angela heard him mutter under his breath, "Let's see how she handles this." Throughout the day, Angela found herself running from one difficult case to another, barely having time to catch her breath. The patients given to her were among the most demanding in the hospital, many with complex medical needs or difficult personalities. Despite the huge workload, Angela refused to let her standards drop. She approached each patient with the same level of care and good behavior, even as tiredness began to set in. However, the constant pressure was taking its toll, both physically and emotionally. As she rushed to respond to yet another call light, Angela heard two of her coworkers whispering nearby, "Can you believe they're letting her handle all these critical cases?" One nurse said, her voice full of scorn. "It's like they're just waiting for her to mess up." "I know," the other replied, "but you have to admit it's impressive how she keeps going. I would have cracked by now." Angela felt a mix of anger and hurt wash over her. The realization that her coworkers were not only aware of the unfair treatment, but were actively watching to see if she would fail was almost too much to bear. As the day went on, Angela found herself making more frequent trips to Mr. Edwards's room. Unlike the rest of the hospital, his room had become a sort of safe place for her, a place where she could catch her breath and feel, if only for a moment, that someone saw her true worth. "Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards greeted her as she entered his room for a routine check. "You look exhausted." "Is everything all right?" Angela managed a weak smile. "Just a busy day, Mr. Edwards. Nothing I can't handle." Mr. Edwards studied her face. For a moment, his eyes filled with concern. "You know," he said carefully, "there's a difference between handling something and truly doing well. From what I've seen, you're more than capable of the latter." His words, though kind, only served to show the clear difference between how Mr. Edwards treated her and how the rest of the hospital staff did. Angela felt a lump form in her throat, the weight of her being alone, threatening to overwhelm her. "Thank you, Mr. Edwards," she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. "I appreciate your kindness." As she turned to leave, Mr. Edwards called out to her. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice full of a quiet power that made her pause. "Remember, sometimes the greatest strength lies in knowing when to speak up." Angela left the room, her mind spinning with the meaning of Mr. Edwards's words. As she made her way back to the nurse's station, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Little did she know that the next day would bring a series of events that would push her to her limits and force a face-off that had been building since her first day at St. Mary's. The following morning, Angela arrived at work to find the hospital very busy. Rumors were spreading about a very important emergency operation set for later that day, with several hospital board members and important visitors expected to watch. As Angela began her rounds, she couldn't help but notice the nervous energy in the hospital. Nurses and doctors alike seemed on edge, the pressure of the upcoming operation weighing heavily on everyone's minds. Midway through her morning duties, Dr. Greaves approached Angela, a glint in his eye that immediately put her on guard. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice carefully neutral, "we need you to help in the emergency operation this afternoon. It's a critical case. I trust you're prepared to handle it." Angela felt a mix of surprise and suspicion. Being asked to help in such a high-profile operation was usually an honor. But coming from Dr. Greaves, she couldn't help but wonder if there was a hidden reason. "Of course, Dr. Greaves," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "I'll be ready." As Dr. Greaves walked away, Angela heard him muttering to another doctor, "Let's see how she handles the pressure." This should be interesting. The hours leading up to the operation were a blur of preparation and waiting. Angela threw herself into her work, checking everything 2 and 3 times to make sure she was as ready as possible for whatever challenges the operation might bring. As she scrubbed in for the surgery, Angela couldn't help but notice the doubting looks from some of the other staff members. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for what was to come. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Don't you dare. Let them see you falter." The operation began, and Angela found herself working alongside Dr. Greaves and several other senior staff members. The tension in the room was clear, with the knowledge that important observers were watching their every move, adding an extra layer of pressure. Despite the challenging situation, Angela remained focused, her movements exact and quick. She knew what the surgeons needed beforehand, handing them instruments before they even had to ask. Her years of training and experience shining through. However, as the operation went on, Angela noticed something that made her heart race. Dr. Greaves, usually so confident and sure, seemed to be hesitating. His hands trembled slightly as he got ready to make a critical cut. In that split second, Angela realized that Dr. Greaves was about to make a potentially life-threatening mistake. Without hesitation, she spoke up. "Dr. Greaves," she said, her voice clear and steady, "perhaps we should consider approaching from a different angle. The patient's body suggests it might be safer." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Angela. Dr. Greaves looked at her, a mix of surprise and anger flashing across his face. For a moment, Angela thought he might dismiss her suggestion right away. But then, almost too small to notice, Dr. Greaves nodded. He changed his approach, following Angela's suggestion. As they continued the operation, it became clear that her stepping in had likely saved the patient's life. As the surgery ended successfully, Angela could feel the weight of many eyes on her. Some looked at her with new respect, while others, including Dr. Greaves, seemed to be boiling with barely contained anger. As they began to clean up, Dr. Greaves turned to Angela, his voice low and threatening. "Nurse Parker, I need to see you in private immediately." Angela followed Dr. Greaves out of the operating room, her heart pounding. She knew that speaking up had been the right thing to do, but she also knew that it might have just cost her job. As they entered a private room, Angela was surprised to see that it was Mr. Edwards's room. In her focus on the operation, she had forgotten that he was still a patient in the hospital. Dr. Greaves, however, seemed too angry to notice or care about their location. As soon as the door closed behind them, he turned on Angela, his face red with fury. "How dare you question my judgment in there?" he hissed, his voice full of hate. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? You're lucky I don't have you fired on the spot for such disobedience." Angela stood her ground, her voice calm but firm. "Dr. Greaves, I was simply doing my job. The patient's safety, your job." Dr. Greaves interrupted, his voice rising. "Your job is to follow orders, not to think you know better than your superiors. This is exactly why people like you don't belong in a prestigious institution like St. Mary's. You're here because of some misguided attempt at diversity, not because you have any real skill or knowledge." As Dr. Greaves continued his angry talk, becoming more openly racist and hostile with each passing moment, Angela felt a mix of anger and hopelessness wash over her. Everything she had put up with, every small insult and unfair act, seemed small compared to this blatant showing of bad feelings. Just as Angela was about to respond, a voice cut through the room, stopping Dr. Greaves mid-sentence. "Dr. Greaves," Mr. Edwards said, his voice full of a quiet power that neither of them had heard before. "I believe you've forgotten where you are and who you're speaking to." Both Angela and Dr. Greaves turned, startled to see Mr. Edwards sitting up in his bed, a look of controlled anger on his face. "Mr. Edwards," Dr. Greaves stammered, his face paling as he realized the seriousness of his mistake. I didn't realize you were awake. I apologize for disturbing you." "Oh, I'm very much awake, Dr. Greaves," Mr. Edwards replied, his eyes narrowing, "and I've been awake for quite some time. long enough to observe the disgraceful way you and others in this hospital have been treating Nurse Parker. Angela stood, frozen, unable to believe what she was hearing. Mr. Edwards. The quiet, humble patient was suddenly giving off an aura of power and authority that filled the room. Mr. Edwards, Dr. Greaves began, his voice trembling slightly. I assure you, there's been a misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding. Mr. Edwards cut him off sharply. What I've witnessed during my stay here is a clear pattern of unfair treatment and harassment, and it ends now. As Mr. Edwards spoke, the realization dawned on both Angela and Dr. Greaves that he was far more than just a VIP patient. The way he carried himself, the power in his voice, was clear that Mr. Edwards held significant power. Who are you? Dr. Greaves asked, his earlier boldness completely gone. Mr. Edwards smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Someone who has the power to make or break this hospital's future. And right now, Dr. Greaves. I'm not feeling very inclined to support an institution that allows such blatant racism and bad professional behavior. As the seriousness of the situation sank in, Angela felt a mix of feelings wash over her. Relief that someone had finally seen and acknowledged the treatment she had been enduring. Anger at the unfairness she had faced, and a glimmer of hope that perhaps, finally, things might change. Little did any of them know that this face-off was about to start a series of events that would shake St. Mary's Hospital to its very core, showing the deep-seated bad feelings that had long been festering beneath its clean surface. The tension in Mr. Edwards's room was clear as the full weight of his words sank in. Dr. Greaves, his face pale, struggled to get back his calm. Angela stood silently, her mind reeling from the sudden turn of events. Mr. Edwards, now fully sitting up in his bed, fixed Dr. Greaves with a strong gaze. I think it's time we had a frank talk about the culture of this hospital, don't you? Before Dr. Greaves could respond, there was a knock at the door. A nervous-looking nurse poked her head in. Dr. Greaves, the hospital boss is looking for you. It's urgent. Dr. Greaves looked between Mr. Edwards and the nurse, clearly torn. Finally, he nodded stiffly. We'll continue this discussion later. Mr. Edwards. Nurse Parker, you're dismissed for now, as Dr. Greaves hurried out of the room. Angela found herself alone with Mr. Edwards. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unsaid words. Nurse Parker, Mr. Edwards finally said, his voice gentler now. I think it's time I properly introduce myself. My name is Thomas Edwards, and I'm the CEO of Healthcare United. It's one of the largest healthcare companies in the country. Angela's eyes widened in shock. Healthcare United was a powerful force in the medical world, known for its influence and money. Suddenly, Mr. Edwards's earlier comments about having the power to make or break the hospital made perfect sense. Mr. Edwards, Angela began, unsure of what to say. Please, sit down, Mr. Edwards said, gesturing to a chair beside his bed. I think we have a lot to discuss. Over the next hour, Mr. Edwards revealed that while his stay at St. Mary's had been unplanned due to his skiing accident, it had opened his eyes to the deep problems within the hospital. I came here as a patient, expecting nothing more than good medical care, Mr. Edwards explained. Instead, I've witnessed a culture of unfair treatment and bad professional behavior that goes against everything I believe in as a healthcare leader. He went on to describe how he had observed the small and not so small unfairness Angela had faced, the small insults, and the overall bad culture that seemed to fill the hospital. Your experience, Nurse Parker, is unfortunately not unique. Mr. Edwards said, his voice filled with a mix of anger and determination. But it is unacceptable, and it ends now. As they talked, Angela felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. For the first time since she started at St. Mary's, she felt truly seen and heard. Mr. Edwards listened closely as she shared her experiences. his face growing more serious with each new fact. "Thank you for your honesty, Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards said when she finished. "Your ability to stay strong in the face of such trouble is admirable. But it's time for big change, not just individual strong will." Just then, there was another knock at the door. The hospital administrator, looking flustered, entered the room. "Mr. Edwards," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I understand there's been some concern about our hospital's practices. I assure you, we take these matters very seriously." Mr. Edwards raised an eyebrow. "Do you? Because from what I've observed, the only thing taken seriously here is maintaining an old and unfair way of doing things." The administrator paled, clearly not ready for such direct criticism. I'm not sure I understand. We have diversity plans in place?" "Plans are not enough," Mr. Edwards cut her off. "What you need is a complete change of your hospital's culture, and it starts at the top." Over the next few hours, Mr. Edwards laid out his demands for change. He called for a full investigation into the unfair practices at St. Mary's, required training for all staff on different backgrounds and acceptance, and a complete update of the hospital's hiring and promotion rules. And as for Dr. Greaves, Mr. Edwards said, his voice hard, "I expect his behavior to be thoroughly investigated. His actions today were not just unprofessional, they were unfair and potentially dangerous to patient care." The administrator, realizing the seriousness of the situation, nodded quietly. "Of course, Mr. Edwards, we'll begin putting these changes into action immediately." As the day went on, word spread throughout the hospital about Mr. Edwards's true identity and the changes he was demanding. The atmosphere in the halls of St. Mary's was electric, a mix of fear, anticipation, and for some, hope. Angela, still trying to understand everything that had happened, found herself at the center of attention. Coworkers who had previously ignored or put her down now approached her, some offering awkward apologies, others seeking her thoughts on the coming changes. As her shift ended, Angela made her way to Mr. Edwards's room one last time. She found him sitting up, looking tired but pleased. "Nurse Parker," he greeted her with a warm smile. "Or should I say, Chief Diversity Officer Parker. How are you holding up?" Angela let out a tired laugh. "It's been quite a day, Mr. Edwards. I'm still trying to process everything, to be honest." Double quotes. Mr. Edwards nodded understandingly. "I know it's a lot to take in, but I want you to know that I have full confidence in your ability to lead these changes. Your resilience and honesty in the face of trouble are exactly what St. Mary's needs right now." As they walked out of the hospital together, Mr. Edwards turned to Angela with a serious look. "You should know that what's happening here at St. Mary's is just the beginning. I plan to put similar changes into action across all of Healthcare United's facilities. Your story, Angela, has the potential to spark a revolution in how we approach difference and acceptance in healthcare." Angela felt the weight of the responsibility settle on her shoulders. But rather than feeling burdened, she felt powerful. "I'm ready for the challenge, Mr. Edwards. Together, we can make real, lasting change." As they parted ways, Angela couldn't help but think about how much had changed in just a few short days. From feeling alone and almost giving up, she now stood at the front of a movement that had the potential to change not just St. Mary's, but the entire healthcare industry. The road ahead would be hard, full of obstacles and resistance from those against change. But as Angela looked back at the hospital, she felt a surge of strong will. This was more than just a job now. It was a calling, a chance to ensure that no other healthcare professional would have to endure what she had gone through. With new purpose, Angela set off into the evening, ready to face whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. The change of St. Mary's had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the fight for fairness and acceptance in healthcare. In the months after Mr. Edwards's reveal, St. Mary's Hospital went through a big change. Under Angela's leadership as Chief Diversity Officer, And with Mr. Edwards's continued support, the once bad culture began to move towards acceptance and respect. The required training for different backgrounds and acceptance, at first met with resistance, slowly opened eyes and changed hearts. Dr. Greaves, after a full investigation, was fired from his job, sending a clear message that unfair behavior would no longer be allowed. As the changes at St. Mary's got attention, Angela found herself in demand as a speaker at medical meetings and fairness talks. 1 year after the important day of Mr. Edwards' stepping in, she stood before a packed room at a national healthcare meeting. A year ago, Angela began, "I was a nurse on the verge of giving up. Today, I stand before you as living proof that change is possible, that one voice can make a difference." She shared St. Mary's story of change, not shying away from the challenges they had faced, but also pointing out the wins. The lives touched, the minds changed, and the culture shifted. After the meeting, Mr. Edwards, now fully recovered from his injuries, approached Angela with a warm smile. "Angela," he greeted her, "you've come a long way from the nurse I met a year ago." They talked about the progress at St. Mary's and its ripple effects across the healthcare industry. Mr. Edwards shared that several other hospitals in the healthcare United Network had begun putting similar programs into place. "You know, Angela," Mr. Edwards said, "when I checked into St. Mary's after my skiing accident, I never could have imagined the journey it would start. You've not only changed St. Mary's, but also lit up my own passion for this work." Again, as Angela got ready to return to St. Mary's, she thought about her amazing journey from an alone, frustrated nurse to a leader and changemaker. She had come. So far, the work was far from over, but Angela felt a sense of hope and strong will, stronger than ever before. Arriving back at St. Mary's, Angela was greeted by Sarah, once a cold coworker, now a strong friend. The hospital was alive with new energy, staff members working together and talking in ways they never had before. In the main lobby, Angela paused before a new painting showing different healthcare workers cooperating. A sign below read, "Difference is our strength. Acceptance is our promise. Caring is our calling." As she settled into her office, ready to take on new challenges, Angela smiled. The change of St. Mary's was just the beginning. The real work of changing hearts, minds, and whole systems was ongoing, and she was ready for it all, set on fighting for a truly accepting healthcare system. One day at a time. What moment in Angela's journey spoke to you the most? Was it her strong will in the face of unfairness, or perhaps Mr. Edwards's surprising help? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please think about subscribing to my channel. I put my heart into making these heartwarming stories for you, and your support is what keeps me going. I appreciate having you on this journey.